Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ladies Room Talk Show. I'm Clarissa Kenty, your Kingdom Concierge. Happy Monday, everyone, and happy Martin Luther King's Day. Yes, this is the day that we celebrate Dr. King's birthday. And man, what a beautiful day it has been. So many amazing things that have been taking place on today, parades and programs. And I mean, the Facebook Live and the Facebook recordings and all of the posts and all the beautiful quotes quoted by Dr. King. Man, it has been beautiful just to see our recognition of him flood the timeline here on social media and all the social media platforms. Kudos to you guys, those of you who are acknowledging Dr. King for what he did and that his dream continues to live on. His dream continues to open doors and set foundations for those underserved and those that we deem as being minority. So we're so grateful for what he's done. We're grateful for his dream that continues to live on and what is continuing to do for people of the minority community. So big kudos to Dr. King and to his family. He has family members that are still doing things, that are still marching, that are still serving our community. So I'm so grateful. So I am so glad that Dr. King decided to dream. Aren't you? All right, listen, we're going to have a great show here tonight. I would be remiss if I didn't give a big shout out to my son, Josiah, Ernest Josiah Kenty. He married the beautiful and amazing Jada B. Kenty now. So we have another Mrs. Kenty. And you know what? I'm all right with sharing that name with her. She's a beautiful young lady, and we're so grateful and so happy to have her into our family. So welcome, J-Bay is what I call her. Welcome to the Kenty family. We love you so much, and we're so grateful that you are part of our family. So God bless us for such a wonderful daughter, and we welcome you with open arms. The wedding this weekend was beautiful in Mobile. It was a beautiful wedding. My new sister in love now, Jackie Beckham. Jackie, girl, you did an amazing job. Jackie is Jada's mom, and she did a phenomenal job in putting the wedding together and all the bells and whistles. So Jackie, you did a great job, and I'm so glad that we're sisters now. And so we can continue to see what God has in store for our children and for this beautiful, beautiful union. So again, to the new Kentys, congratulations. We love you and much, much success to your union and to your covenant. Big shout out on last week to Terry Collins. Terry Collins is the communications specialist with the SCLC. He came in on last week and we talked a good bit about the purpose of LCLC and how it originated and when it started. How did it come in place and how does it play a significant role in where we are today? If you missed that show, please go back to the Ladies Room page, the Ladies Room, Ladiez. Go back to that page and listen to that. I'm telling you, it's a wealth of knowledge that was just spilling out on last week. Understanding the importance of the foot soldiers, understanding the march, understanding the civil rights movement. And so today we have another great historian. He is the historian for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Barry McNealy. He's no stranger to the Ladies Room. And of course, he has a virtual key to come in anytime he wishes. We would just fling that door open to him. But we're so grateful. He's had a full day today, guys. I believe he's started off at a breakfast somewhere, and he's been marching and talking and walking and touring. He's been doing a lot today in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. And I'm so glad that he decided to wrap his evening up inside the Ladies Room. So we welcome back to the Ladies Room, Barry McNealy. Barry, welcome back.
How we doing? How we doing? How we doing?
We're doing great. I'm glad that you're in the room tonight. I've been anxiously waiting for you to come because every time you come, Barry, you share just a wealth of knowledge with us inside the Ladies Room, something that we can take and hold dear and deposit that and download that into our minds so that we never forget the fight. We never forget the lives lost on behalf of us so that we can do the things that we do right now. We take it for granted. I believe the things and the freedom that we have. The freedom had a lot to do, of course, with God, but also to those people that God put in place that he favored in order to make moves so that we can have freedom and justice for all. So, Barry, let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day. What all did you do?
Well, Clarissa, I want to say that, first of all, I'd like to thank you and your support of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and our programming. This platform is something that is very special in this community, and we don't take it for granted. Today, speaking of community, the community turned out. We had drum sections from all over the city playing, and we started a very powerful day with our new president and CEO, Deborah Bowie, welcoming the community into the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And she handed that off to the Carlton Reese Memorial Freedom Choir. This is the choir that was created during the movement out of the 60 churches that came together to replace the NAACP when the state of Alabama outlawed them. And these 60 churches, when they came together as the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, they would meet every Monday night without fail from June of 56 to June of 1963. And they would go to the different churches, and this is what they were able to utilize is they controlled these churches. They trusted these churches. And when they would go to these churches, they would pull members from the individual congregations' choirs to create a mass choir. So that if somebody was, at 16th Street, they could have somebody that they knew in the choir, but if they were at Metropolitan, same thing, or if they were at Bethel, same thing. And we started out our day with that choir that still has members original from that time period, original from those mass meetings when Dr. Martin Luther King and Fred Shuttlesworth and Joseph Lowry and Ralph Abernathy and all of these icons of the movement. We started today with the ones that started it for them. And that set us off really well. After that, we were able to have a very in-depth conversation about the moments of Martin. In our pre-show just now, we were talking about, you were talking about how important Birmingham was to Dr. Martin Luther King. And today we had a panel discussion with Dr. Horace Huntley, who is the founder of the Civil Rights Institute's oral history program, who has interviewed hundreds of people who were the actual people who were, in the midst of the fight, the ones that were actually here and actually putting their lives on the line and putting their careers on the line and being abused and all these kinds of things. We had Dr. Huntley on hand to talk about the impact of Birmingham on Dr. King. And we had the archivist for the Birmingham Library, retired Jim Baggett, to come in. And Jim's work has been to shepherd and caretake the artifacts of the movement. Things like when Dr. King signed in on the police blotter. These are things that he had in that collection that he would watch over. And he's currently writing a book on, of all people, Eugene Theophilus Connor. And so we had both of these two experts in Birmingham's movement to sit down at the Institute and have that discussion. After that, we had 2 genealogy workshops, because a lot of people are very interested in tracing their heritage and discovering their roots. And we want people to have an idea of how to get started with that. For young people, we had Studio 2500 to come out and do artwork with them. And we also had a local jazz duet, Alias, to come in, and they performed. And when I tell you that there were literally thousands of people walking through the galleries of the Institute today, it's a wonderful thing to see the community turn out, because Dr. King's birthday, when we talk about it, we say that it's a day on and not a day off. It's a day that you should find something to do to commemorate his life, but not only commemorate his life, but to carry the ball forward on his dream. And in terms of carrying that ball forward, today is the historic day when we begin to recruit students for our Legacy Youth Leadership Program. This program has been in place for 18 years now, and we bring together high school students from Jefferson County, private schools, parochial schools, public schools, home schools, and we bring these young people together from one side of the county to the other, and they study for 13 weeks during the spring. They study the history of Birmingham and the civil rights movement. And they use that study to become ambassadors and docents for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. And today, these young people were on hand helping to recruit other young people to be a part of the program. But they also took a moment to share their knowledge of the civil rights movement in the city of Birmingham, and it was a very powerful experience. So it's been a full day, and I really am encouraged by how many people were willing to come out in the cold, and it's always cold, but people came out in the cold and they braved the lines, and I want to say thanks to all of those people, and I want to say thanks to you for amplifying that with your platform.
Thank you, Barry. I tell you, you have really shared so much about this day as a whole, and a lot of people don't know, what's taking place or when it's taking place or what's going on. And so this year, I think people have really done a really good job at informing us of what's taking place, the lineup for today. I've seen more about that than I have within a couple of years. So it's really good to see because a lot of people want to know what's going on. They just don't know where to go or what to do. And so that has been, I thought, was very clearly communicated very well, as a matter of fact, on today. So again, thank you so much for everything that you do and what you are doing. And I'm sure you have some things coming down the pipeline for 2026. I'm excited about the leadership program that's been taking place for 18 years. We certainly going to push this information out to some of my contacts that I know in various schools, private schools and charter schools and the public city schools and the Jefferson County schools. I'm going to push that out to everyone because I think that's a beautiful opportunity for young people to embrace and to learn more about history. My goal and my desire is that they will keep that in the school system, because without Black history, there is no history. And
Not
so,
at all.
no, and I really would hope and pray that they'll continue to keep that in the curriculum. I think we need people like you and our political officers, those state representatives and senators in the state of Alabama, to really stand for that and to make sure that that history remains, because without it, it's just skewed information. So let's talk a little bit about Dr. King, Barry. We know that Dr. King spent a lot of time in Birmingham, Alabama, and I wanted to see if you could share a little bit more about his purpose here in Birmingham and how significant it was. I understand that he had a lot of private meetings in Birmingham because it was so dangerous for him to be here. And so he was able to connect with some of the local ministers here in Birmingham, Alabama. He was connected with Fred Shuttlesworth. He was connected with Abraham Woods, people who are here, significant pioneers here in Birmingham. He was able to connect with those people. He was able to meet at some restaurants and people's homes he stayed in. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and then also about the foot soldiers?
Well, when we think about Dr. King, he has a very close connection to Birmingham because his civil rights career started, an hour and 10 minutes down the road in Montgomery. And when we also think of Dr. Martin Luther King, we think about the fact that, he was born Michael King. But his father, upon studying the the Catholic priest, Martin Luther, he changed his name to Martin Luther. And I bring that up because his father had a very close relationship with one of the very important people in Birmingham and in Birmingham's movement, and that would have been John Drew. John Drew worked hand in hand with Arthur Davis Shores to overturn Birmingham's oppressive housing ordinance. You know, it was a time in Birmingham when you had middle class people. And let me back up because I think this is important. When we talk about segregation and Jim Crow segregation, the part we remember was the separation. But it's so very important to remember that the main separation was separation. It wasn't about you being far away from me. It was about you knowing that you were beneath me. And a part of that was pulled from the feudal system in Europe, where a person could be born a serf, a peasant, and no matter what they did, no matter how beautiful they were, no matter how intelligent they were, no matter how talented they were, no matter how industrious they were, if they were born a peasant, they lived a peasant, and they died a peasant. There wasn't a way out of it. You were born into that. Well, in Jim Crow segregation, your status as a peasant was tied to the color of your skin. And no matter what you were trying to do, you would always, especially in Birmingham, you'd bump up against a steel ceiling. So people of color weren't allowed to go to school after the 10th grade. There was no provision for them. And people who worked in the steel mills, they were called helpers. And you were a helper by virtue of the color of your skin. And if you were a helper, then that meant you made 30 to 50 cents less on the dollar that I made. And since the color of your skin dictated you being a helper, it didn't matter how good you were at the job. You could actually train me and I would become your supervisor and you would stay in that same position ad infinitum. With the housing, Birmingham's Black community made up more than 43% of the population of Birmingham, but Birmingham only allowed them to live in 11% of the residential territory. And so what you have happening there is when Smithfield Housing Projects is built, you have nurses and dentists and middle-class educators living in housing projects. Because if they weren't living in housing projects, they would be living in shotgun houses. And it didn't matter how hard you worked. This was a part of that making sure that you never felt like you could rise up in society. And so John Drew and Arthur Davis Shores, they, with the help of Thurgood Marshall, they sued Birmingham with the Monk case, and they were able to overturn this. But the thing is when it was overturned legally. But legally didn't have anything to do with Nimrisha, the Knights of the White Camellia, the National States Rights Party, the Ku Klux Klan. They didn't care about legally. And they began bombing people's homes and terrorizing people. And one of those places that Dr. King would meet in secret, and he met in secret apart because they didn't want to always show their cards. And they didn't always want the powers that be to know who was working together, because sometimes if you look at, oh, well, they're talking to a lawyer, then you know that this is going to be something involved in litigation. And so a lot of times they would do it to hide their cards. But Dr. King was also very, very conscious of the fact that his life was under constant threat. And he was so very conscious of it that he didn't want to put other people's lives in jeopardy if he could avoid it. And so that would necessitate him needing that, say, Armstrong's barbershop. And, you know, when you're getting a haircut with James Armstrong, you're also in there talking about voting rights strategy. And you're in there talking about who you need to talk to make this happen. And where he would go to restaurants, like you mentioned, he would go to these places that were unassuming. Mm-hmm. He would meet at the Gaston Motel, where A.G. Gaston would let them have the war room. And A.G. Gaston always made room number 30 available for Dr. King to stay in if he had to stay somewhere. Mm-hmm. When we think about Dr. King, we also have to think about the fact that his younger brother, Alfred Daniel Williams King.
Hey, Barry, but before I continue, I did want to say that the A.G. Gaston Motel is available for tours. I think it's free as well, but I think it have to be scheduled. Sometimes they're open. You can kind of walk through. You can see through the gate where the actual hotel that you just spoke of is located. But there's also a really beautiful tour that you can take and really get a lot. In addition to what Barry has said, has shared, you can get more information as well about the hotel, the history, and all of those things that Dr. King and things that A.G. Gaston did with that hotel. So with motel. So let's make sure that we go by and take a look at that. And you can Google it. I believe it's the A.G. Gaston Motel Museum. Maybe? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can Google that and find out more information. So I did want to put that plug in.
Well, just a thank you, because sometimes I get in the past and I just get locked there. But it's very important that we understand that in 2017, when the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, designated this as the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument, the footprint for the Department of the Interior, the National Park Service, their footprint is right there at that Gaston Motel. And they are charged with first of all, preserving it, restoring it, and administering it. And by the way, there's a excellent coffee shop that exists there.
I was there last week.
Yeah, Alicia's coffee shop. They are the most wonderful people, and they know what they're doing. I don't want to mention other coffee shops' names and all of that, but you can do just as well going to Alicia's as you can anywhere else. If you need a nicotine fix with a caffeine fix, this is the place to explore in Birmingham. I highly recommend it.
So do I. I was there last week. I had to meet someone there and introduce them to that location. It is Black owned and operated. And so they do great. And, Barry, they also have various blends of tea as well. Mm-hmm. And they also have pastries, and they have some sandwiches there too, I believe. So they have a variety of things.
Well, this is not an accident. So I got at the food, and I can I can vouch for it. But, when we think of those places like that, it's so very powerful that, because there was a time that there was a restaurant in the Gaston Motel. And, as much as possible, we need to nod back to history. We need to sort of pay homage to that has gone before us. Mm-hmm. And I think that the developing Gaston Motel and Alicia's, especially with the Gaston exhibit that you mentioned a moment ago, I think it's a powerful nod back to that time period in history. And so those kinds of places, when you think about it, as I mentioned earlier, legal and the Ku Klux Klan did not have anything to do with one another. When the city of Birmingham decided, after Dr. King's leadership of Project C for confrontation, when the city of Birmingham finally decided that they could no longer endure the massive pressure that was being put upon Birmingham financially and with this direct action campaign, when they decided that they were going to remove the colored signs in the parks and take down the segregation ordinances and integrate Birmingham. When they decided to do that, that lobby area is where Fred Shuttlesworth and Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy, they announced to the public that the city of Birmingham had given in and that the battle had been won. Mm-hmm. But the Ku Klux Klan didn't care for that. They came there that night and they bombed that hotel. And not only did they bomb that hotel, going back to what you were saying a moment ago about Dr. King going places in secret, well, they went to Dr. King's brother's house, which is about a block and a half walk from Jackson Olin High School. Mm-hmm. They went to Dr. King's brother's house that same night and they bombed his house. And so when you mentioned Dr. King needing places in secret, that was a very important thing that he had to do, because people were watching him. And if you were, listed as being alongside King or the movement, then you put a target on your back as well.
Mm-hmm. Dr. King was, a lot of people like to pull out negatives of people when they're doing positive things. And so, there's been a lot swimming around about his character, his integrity, and all of these types of things. But I just don't know of anyone that's a perfect being or a perfect person. I don't know of anybody other than Jesus himself. And so I choose to look at the positive things that Dr. King did. And there's no question about the things that he has done has made a difference. It's opened up doors of opportunity for minorities. It's pulled people together to be unified. It's given some people hope where there was any, or whether they just didn't have any, as it relates to unity and equality. And so when I think of Dr. King, I think of that type of person. I'm looking at somebody who a lot of people don't realize how young he was doing what he was doing. And so I'm not quite sure of his exact age, but I know, was he in his 30s, Barry?
Well, he was in his 30s when he died. But when we think about Dr. King starting with the Montgomery bus boycott, he was very fresh-faced and in his 20s. Mm-hmm. Dr. King, when we think about he passed, but he didn't pass. That's incorrect. I'm not going to say that. When he was assassinated, that's right, in 1968, that was 5 years past Birmingham. Mm. So when he's here in Birmingham, and really, Birmingham is going to be 62 going into 63. But you're talking about a man that was, 33 years old, 33, 34 years old. And it's not an exaggeration to say the entire world was listening to this man. Right. Whether they agreed with him or not, he was that powerful that the entire world followed him. Nelson Mandela talked about the studying of Dr. King and studying his work in Birmingham, specifically Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail, and using the words from that letter to help people fight for liberation from colonialism in the motherland. And so being a person of that age and that experience, being able to garner that kind of following, that kind of attention, it just gives you an idea of how very powerful his presence was. Sadly, though, when candles burn that bright, they don't tend to burn for very long. If you look at a John F. Kennedy, or if you look at Abraham Lincoln, people like that, they don't tend to stay with us long, or Malcolm X, or that it's something about, I guess you play your role and then you exit the stage. But when we think of him being here in Birmingham, a part of what we were talking about today is the monumental things that he was able to achieve in the city of Birmingham. And of course, we've mentioned the letter from the Birmingham jail. When Dr. King is arrested on Good Friday, he's the grandson of a minister. He's the son of a minister. He knew all too well the symbolism of being taken into custody in Birmingham, a la Jesus Christ and Pontius Pilate. He knew that. And he knew that people who were following this movement, which was a spiritual movement, he knew that they knew what he was trying to say. And when he sits behind those bars, there are going to be 8 clergymen who are going to, out of practicality, necessity, however you want to label it, they were trying to make room for Birmingham's new government to take hold. When Dr. King is in the Birmingham jail, it's during the period where Albert Boutwell and Bull Connor are vying legally over who is the leader of the city of Birmingham. Bull Connor had run for mayor against Boutwell, and the Ku Klux Klan, they bombed Albert Boutwell's house to get him to drop out of the race because they had a relationship with Bull Connor. But it didn't stop Boutwell. Boutwell stayed in the race and he beat Bull Connor. But when he beat Bull Connor would not relinquish the commissioner of public safety. And so Birmingham struggled for 2 months with 2 executives. And while these clergymen who wrote this letter and published it in a op-ed, while they were trying to get the movement to pause to let Birmingham settle on its new administration, they weren't thinking of the fact that, as Dr. King said, Black people had been waiting for 400 years. And, he wasn't about to wait any longer. Now that the movement was gaining momentum in Birmingham, he wasn't about to squander that. And his response to their letter was his letter. And when we think about his letter, that letter that he wrote behind those bars without a dictionary or a thesaurus or anything, any kind of reference material, he wrote something that is on par with anything that any American has ever written. I put it on par with Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. And it's a seminal document that talks about humanity, but the responsibility that humanity has towards one another. He talked about being disappointed when those people who were supposed to be on his side didn't stand up. So he talked about people hiding behind stained glass windows. He was talking about those people. He talked about the liberals, who were supposed to be on the front line, who would not stand up.
Right.
And that letter galvanized people, as I said a moment ago, in the continent of Africa to fight back against colonialism. Most of these countries that found their liberation in the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of that could be tied to what happened right here in Birmingham, Alabama, under the leadership of Reverend Dr. King.
Mhm. You know, when I moved here back in 1990 in Alabama, I'm originally from South Carolina. And so my mom was so nervous about me moving to Birmingham, Alabama, also known as Birmingham.
Yeah.
And so she was so nervous about that. And I was just glad to go to Miles College. Barry, that's where you and I both attended at the same time, and proud graduates of Miles College. But, you know, she was so nervous about it because she grew up in that era when Dr. King was here, and she knew about the marches and the dogs and all of the things, and so she was so nervous about me coming to be here, and that was in 1990. And so Birmingham still has that label, and of course, it's history. So that is history, and you know, people associate the civil rights movement with Birmingham, Alabama, but also, you know, there's some resilience here. There are people who are doing some powerful things in powerful positions, who are working together as united people under the same leadership of the Holy Spirit, I believe. And I believe that as we continue to come together and live out the dream that Dr. King had, God, you know, Dr. King, I believe that God had a mantle in his life. And I believe that he was led to do the things that he did for us. Not a perfect man, but a man who sought promise and a man who sought purpose. And so, and because of that, we are where we are today, not just in Birmingham, but in the nation. And so I'm so grateful, Barry, for you coming into the ladies' room here tonight and sharing your knowledge. I call you a walking, what did I say? Wikipedia. I mean, you have the information and you have the knowledge. And I would ask anybody, really, you know, those of you who are with organizations and churches and that sort of thing, as we come embark upon another beautiful month, as we celebrate and honor Black History Month, I would admonish you to reach out to Barry McNealy, have him to come out, speak to your classes, speak to your organization, speak to your companies and businesses as we are learning more, that we're wanting our children to learn more. Barry is a great resource, and I know that the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute is quite honored and pleased to have you there. And I know that Deborah, that she's there now as the executive director, I believe, and I know she is glad that there is a Barry McNealy on her team and on her staff. So Barry, again, thank you so much for coming out, hanging out with us today, sharing this wealth of knowledge as we celebrate the life and the birth of Dr. King. As we wrap up today, you've been in the ladies' room before, so you know how we roll. At the end of our show, we love for our guests to share some insightful words to our listening audience, to share with them and encourage them. And, you know, tonight, Barry, I would like for you really just, I said something earlier off air, but I want you to speak a little differently. You can still bring that in, but I want you to speak to our young people who are in their late 30s, early 30s and late 20s, mid to late 20s, those young people who feel like that their life may not have much significance right now because they're still young folk. I want you to speak to those people to really have them to tap into their call, into their purpose, and start doing it now. Because just like Dr. King, people need them to tap into purpose. People need them to pursue promise. And so could you talk to those people who may be desolate in their life and encourage them to move forward to what God has called them to do?
You know, I want to start with something that you said a moment ago. You said that Dr. King wasn't perfect. And I think that that's a perfect thing to remember. We have to stop deifying our leaders, because when we put people up on a pedestal, that subconsciously gives us an excuse to say, oh, well, he was Dr. King. And will you expect me to be Dr. King? Yes, I do expect you to be Dr. King. Dr. King would have expected you to be Dr. King. Dr. King knew and lived with, on a daily basis, the idea that his life was at constant threat. In fact, his last public speech, Dr. King says that, he'd been to the mountaintop, that he wasn't going to get there with us. And I think when he left us with those words, I think what he was saying is, don't lean on what I've done. Carry on what I've done. And so Dr. King was just as human as any of us are. And he spent his life trying to get people to just acknowledge our shared humanity. And today, when we see people being rounded up in streets, today, when we see people being cut off from their necessary benefits to feed their families, today, when we see so much rancor and discord around us, it is imperative that we remember that Dr. King said, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And stand on that and not make an excuse that the greatest of us are gone. The greatest of us are still here. We just have to tap into what they did and carry it forward.
I love it. I love it. Those are beautiful words to live by, words that I think we all should be able to embrace and take on. Dr. King expressed beautifully. We can go back in Google stuff about his speeches in print and also to hear him audibly. As we listen to those things, we need to really take heart. Look at the things that have manifested already, but then also look at the things that are still to come. And I remember thinking, and some people had really shared some beautiful words to me after my mom passed around this time last year. And they're saying the mantle has been passed. The mantle has been passed to you from your mom to you. And I submit to all of us today that the mantle that Dr. King carried has been passed. Now we have to make a decision if we're going to pick that mantle up and carry it. Now, are all of us called to do it? No, probably not. But there are a lot of us who are, but we just have not picked up the mantle. Is it we're afraid of what the expectations are to do such a powerful thing upon this earth? I don't know. Well, I think we can learn a lot from Dr. King, primarily being one who has the courage of their convictions, be able to see and do and not be afraid. I just did not pick up anything where Dr. King was afraid of anything. I'm sure that he did have some concerns, but it didn't cause enough fear to stop him from doing what he had to do. Barry, even in one of his speeches, he said, hey, I may not be there when you get there. I may not be able to see it when you get there. I believe that he prophesied his assassination. He knew that the time would come and it was drawing near. But I believe that if we would just be so kind to ourselves, to really have the courage to be authentically who we're called to be, just like Dr. King was. And I believe that we can make some moves. I think we can make some changes. We can be the change that we want and expect to see. But we can't do it by sitting and watching and not doing. So, Barry, thank you again for coming out, hanging out with us. Thank you for those beautiful words of inspiration. And I believe and trust and know that the words that you shared today is impactful to somebody that's listening and pushing all of us to be better people so that we can make a difference and that we can leave our footprints in the sand today. So, guys, listen, happy Martin Luther King Day. I pray that you enjoyed yourself. I see Barry is repping this shirt. I need to get one of those shirts, Barry.
All right, we'll work on that.
Okay. Gotcha. Hey, and I'll wear it outside of today. I'll wear it tomorrow and next week too. But again, thank you again, guys, for coming and sharing with us. Again, guys, listen, we are celebrating 10 years this year of the Ladies Room Talk Show. Thank you, Barry. We have been around for 10 years. I can't believe it. And some of you have been rocking with us for the entire 10 years. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about celebrating 10 years. We're looking forward to kind of let you know some fun things that will be taking place as we get into the year. Actually, August, September will be the actual 10-year anniversary, but we are celebrating all year. So again, I want to thank all of you. We could not be who we are without you, your support, your continued support and watching and sharing and being a part. We could not be who we are. Barry, we couldn't be who we are without you. Continuously coming in 3 and 4 times whenever we call you, you're always so willing to hang out with us inside the ladies' room. And for that, I'm grateful. I certainly don't take it lightly. So guys, again, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Congratulations to the Kentys, Mr. and Mrs. Ernest Josiah Kenty, who tied the knot this weekend. Love them so much, and congratulations to them. So again, guys, thank you again for hanging out with us and join us. We're going to have a special edition this week. We're going to be bringing Fifi Redmond. She has an event that's going to be taking place this Friday called Tickling the Ivories. This is something she does every year, and it's going to be taking place this Friday. So we're going to have her inside the ladies' room this week, talk a little bit more about that, and we're going to talk about how you can get those tickets too, all right? Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Barry, again, and good night.
Step into the ladies' room with Clarissa.